This debt, this destruction.
Global news impacts us.
We have to change the way we live.
This is why we need independent media.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Hard Lens Media here for our Wednesday show. That's right. That looks a little empty.
Show that happens on Wednesday.
I know, exactly. Hey, Daniel, you were away. I'm pretty sure you're going to be talking about it on Patreon.
Oh, yeah. I have a very annoying story about why I wasn't here yesterday.
So there we go. So then, and nonetheless, don't worry. A lot of good stuff is happening. I want to give a huge shout out to FaZe for managing the board. I want to give a huge shout out to our moderators for keeping the peace. But I know it's Wednesday's show, and I want to introduce our guest who is zooming in for very good reasons. But we wish she was here with us right now. Give it up for the wonderful, incredible, outstanding, legendary, stupendous Kira McCown, who's inside her own house right there.
Hello. Kind of like a spaceship, actually.
It's a spaceship, right?
My home spaceship is what it is.
Well,
so yeah, I'm quarantining right now. I was exposed to the COVID virus on Friday, so I'm just being responsible, making sure I don't spread the love.
Oh man, I wanted to get infected.
It's a lot of fun.
Well, I think I think for our entire audience, I think all of you, all of them want to see you get well. I'm pretty sure everything's fine.
Potentially get well.
Right. Yeah, I don't have any symptoms. Like I said, I had some Coca-Cola gummies right before coming on the show. They still taste great, so that's all good. So I'll be taking my rapid test tomorrow, and if I'm still symptomless by Friday, I'll start going about my regular life. But yeah, it's really a pain in the butt.
Well, we first of all, again, Kira, we can't wait to have you back in the studio. And two, I never had Coca-Cola gummies.
I was gonna make a cocaine joke, but then I didn't.
Yeah. Oh, what? Hey,
so
family
good.
friendly, buddy. Family friendly.
That's why I didn't make it. I'm still.
No, but seriously, no, I never had Coca-Cola gummies, so I don't know what I'm missing. So, Kira, next time you're here,
you don't know what you're missing.
Yeah.
They're my favorite kind of gummies. I went to Chris Kindlemark this weekend before I knew that I had been exposed, and that's a German market that they do around Christmas time in downtown Chicago every year. And I always go to the Candy Castle, and I get myself the Haribo Coca-Cola gummies and also the little cherry ones. And I like to eat them together and make cherry Coke. So
you and Myra both love that place. You get to the mugs every year.
Yeah, there were two this year. There's a 25 anniversary one and a penguin one. So we got both.
Oh, speaking of which, too, I'm pretty sure we got a lot to talk about on the Patreon show. FaZe showed me this fantastic video. Nearly brought a tear to my eye, but since you two haven't seen it, I think you'll get a big kick out, especially you, Kira. So we'll probably be maybe bringing up after you're done telling your story on Patreon or something like that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, and then after.
See it.
Yeah, so Daniel,
apparently a music video was made of us, and I had no idea.
Well, no, it's not.
By the way, I'm sorry for everyone if you see I have a little jaundice right now. We're getting that cleared up in a minute.
So audience, while we're still before we do our main show. Give a huge shout out to Kira in the chat, and give a huge shout out to FaZe as well.
Not on screen though.
Yeah, just how about this? Give a thumbs up to Kira and FaZe in the chat. That way, so everyone knows that. Hey, they're valuable members of the team. Give a thumbs up to Daniel too.
Here too.
Yeah. You get some. Am I not generous? I went mad with power on Tuesday because I had all the super delegates. I went mad with power. But anyways. Again, we're live every Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time on YouTube, Odyssey, and Rockfin. If you want to help us out, please consider being a Patreon supporter as well. That link is in the description box below. That will help us out because, let's face it, the YouTube censorship is very, very, very real. So with that being said, let's get started with our first segment. So we got two video clips that came out from Steven Donziger's Twitter account. Now, as we all know, Steven Donziger, he should not be behind bars, period. Debate me on this because let's face it, at this point, he is someone who stood up against Chevron and won. Mm-hmm. He stood up for the indigenous tribes in Ecuador and made sure that they were going to be taken care of. Now, of course, Chevron, being the shady corporation that it is, and its connections to the U.S. Judicial Department, politicians, and so much more, they decided to punish Steven Donziger. Mm-hmm. And Donziger, after being 2 years under house arrest, is now behind bars for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
6 months. So on yesterday's show, I talked about how progressive lawmakers like AOC, our own Representative Chuy Garcia from Illinois, as well as numerous other progressive lawmakers, are basically writing to the Department of Justice and the Biden-Harris administration, Stephen Donziger should be freed. And to that, I think all of us can agree. I know we've had our criticisms of a lot of our progressive lawmakers. Good. This is great. But these two video clips are very important, and I urge AOC and the rest of the progressive caucus in the House to really hold the Biden-Harris's feet to the fire, as well as the Department of Justice, because this is response from the prosecutor in regards to what would happen if the Department of Justice said to them, drop this case. Let's play this first video, and then there's a follow-up that came up just recently as well, so let's play this first video.
So your position is that you are subject to the supervision of the Attorney General. So
Yes,
if the Attorney General
I actually believe,
or the
I
U.S.
do
Attorney
believe that.
called you up tomorrow and said stop prosecuting, you would stop prosecuting. Is that right?
Did you say the U.S. Attorney?
You know, it has to be the Attorney General
I
and
would
not
go
the
to
U.S.
Main
Attorney?
Justice, yes.
Okay, so if the Attorney General calls you up and says stop prosecuting,
Yes.
you would stop prosecuting.
No, I think you would do what you would do in the normal course of events. I would go to have a meeting at Main Justice. I would appear before the district court judge, Judge Praska, and if it stopped prosecuting, it's basically asking me to move to dismiss. And
Well,
typically
okay, I
what
understand
happens,
there's
like,
the,
so I
there's the
would go through
formalities
that
for withdrawing that
process.
the Justice Department has to go through, but you're saying that you would act just like an assistant U.S. attorney would act hearing an order from the Attorney General saying we don't want to do this anymore,
If
right?
Merrick Garland called me up and directed me to dismiss the prosecution, I would bring that to the attention of Judge Preska, and just the way any AUSA does, and say, I have been directed by the Department of Justice, it's pursuant to this.
So, but I mean, I understand that there's a procedure, but you're saying that if the policy of the United States was they don't want Mr. Donziger prosecuted, you would abide by that policy.
If they directed me to take that position in court, yes, and I would explain that to the court.
Okay, that's very interesting. So the thing is, look, again, Stephen Donziger, his reason why he's behind bars is because of a misdemeanor, which, again,
After serving 4 times his sentence, he's now serving his sentence that we all agree he should have never gotten in the first place.
And to be very clear here, I want to see more pressure, more action from our progressive lawmakers to defend Stephen Donziger and to have him out of jail, not tomorrow, not next week, but right now. But again, I can hope and dream, but I would like to see this pressure campaign, and for all social media and everyone, activists, all the allies that are standing solidarity with Stephen Donziger, to get him out of jail, or not jail, but from prison. Because right now he's serving the 6-month term, and it's unjust. It's a complete joke at this point. But there's another video too that recently came out on Stephen Donziger's Twitter account, and it's about 43 seconds. But I think it's very important that we do listen to it. So, for fairness for our audience, let's play it phase if we can for its full entirety.
Saying they'd have to plug somebody in if they fire you?
That's what I think, yes.
They can't leave a void? Is that what you're saying? They can't fire you and leave it empty?
Well, it says that the Attorney General has to conduct all litigation in which the U.S. is a
But
party.
what if the way he's decided to do it is he's going to drop the case, and so he's going to fire you and file something saying that the whole thing's over?
I think we would have an interesting constitutional question. If I was told to do that.
How is this not lesser included in the Attorney General's statutory supervision of the case? Well, this seems like an easy question. I don't understand why you're hesitating.
Hold on, if it's not, I could not hear you.
The power to fire, replace, whatever word you want to use, would be included.
Saying they'd have to plug somebody in if they fire you?
That's what I think, yes.
They can't leave a void? Is that what you're saying? They can't
Yes,
fire
so
you
hold
and
on,
leave
let's
it
pause
empty?
it. So again, the prosecutor is basically avoiding the question. That was the purpose of this tweet, in case they had to fire her or anything of that nature. But look, we've been covering this story, and I think it's only fair. And the reason why we here at Heartlands Media are talking about this is because we've covered other stories about other whistleblowers and activists, investigative journalists who have been censored, who have been imprisoned, who are in hiding or have to leave the states because of who knows why in a republic, in a democracy where supposedly free speech is fundamentally important. But they're trying to make an example out of Stephen Donziger, and it's starting to become really concerning, especially as this is happening under a Democratic administration. Not a Republican administration. This is happening under a Democratic administration. It's what I have to urge our progressive lawmakers, AOC, I want to see them do this. I want to hold out for hope. I know I've been disappointed. I want to be idealistic here for a moment. I want to see our progressive lawmakers hold the Biden-Harris administration accountable and actually get the Department of Justice to actually get involved in this case and get Steven Donziger out from behind bars. And so with that being said, I want to bring in Daniel and Kira's opinions because I know we've covered this story from different perspectives. So Daniel, will start off with you, and then Kira, I want to give you the final note.
So I would argue first and foremost that I don't know why we're saying especially Democrats. I would say, if anything, it should be especially Republicans who do this less often than Democrats do.
Go ahead.
So I think Democrats have pretty recently historically been the people that take down whistleblowers more than any other. So I think that we should not inherently even start from that position. We should start from Republicans are actually better on this, even though they're just as vindictive and everything else we talked about before. And then I think that I'm glad that we're still talking about this. I'm glad people are still talking about this. I'm glad that people are still trying to make moves. And again, the reason that this is all happening is because this gentleman won a huge amount of money for a foreign country, and the way that oil thought was best to deal with this would be to take down the credibility of said person so that they can go, oh, we're not going to pay the litigation. The thing was fraudulent because we said so. And so you're in a spot now where this needs to be appealed. I actually wouldn't be happy as much if he just got off after all this happened, because what it is that from what I understand, the precedent would still apply going forward. We wouldn't change that. It would basically be precedent happens and then political override occurs, not what we need it to be, which is you can't do this in the first place. You can't put someone under house arrest for something like this. And then I want to see him get his law license back or sue the bar or something of that nature. But all of this has to be done in the right order and undo the precedent that was made.
Great. Kira.
That's a really, really great point, Daniel. I hadn't even thought of that. And then when you talked about, this happens under Democratic lawmakers, yeah, because when Republicans do things like this, mainstream media, corporate media, I should say, their hair catches on fire. You saw what happened during the Trump era, and now Biden is enacting a lot of the same policies that Trump is, and corporate media just goes along to get along. But when a Republican does something like this, the hair catches on fire. So I think that these are the sorts of things, because of the way that our system is set up, that largely only Democrats can seem to do and kind of get away with. So that's largely why I am personally against the Democratic Party. I don't like the Republican Party either, but I do think that that's why the Democratic Party is more dangerous. And then I actually had a few really interesting things as I was poking around in this story, that just tidbits that I thought were kind of interesting. First of all, this lawyer, Rita Glavin, was also Andrew Cuomo's attorney. And yeah, isn't that wild? And what she's really good at is avoiding answering questions. And I'm guessing she probably coaches a lot of her clients to do very, very similar things. And then the other piece that I wanted to share with everybody, and I wrote it down here, and I'm just going to put it up here. So if anybody wants to do anything about this,
you want to bring it down just a little bit lower.
Lower.
All right, and then
there we go.
this side.
No, other way.
Other way.
It's backwards on my screen.
No, stop. Right there. Perfect. Leave it right there. So
there we go. So this is
202-353-1555. Department of Justice.
And your comments.
Yeah, if you want to do something about this, that is the number to call. Leave your comment. Ask them to denounce this corporate prosecution of Steven Donziger.
There we go. I think we all can agree. Our audience can agree. Hashtag free Donziger. In fact, here let's actually have a polling question for our audience, so that way when this video is clipped, we can continue on with this conversation. But I think I have to deal with. I want to bring the progressive lawmakers. Type 1 if you think was some of these progressive lawmakers from the House and Senate that are calling for Steven Donziger to be free. Type 1 if you think that don't.
And by the way, because I saw some people in the comments saying this earlier, have an issue with us saying progressive lawmakers. I have a quick change I think we can all use in life. Ready? Progressive branded lawmakers.
Progressive branded. You know what? That's good. That's a great.
Good. That's good.
All right. So let's have a polling question. It'll be a yes or no. Type 1 for yes, type 2 for no. Do you think our progressive branded lawmakers will actually put enough pressure on the Biden-Harris administration to get the Department of Justice to release Stephen Donziger? Type 1 for yes, type 2 for no. Let's get this conversation going.
I actually think, you know me, I'm not an optimist. I think this has a higher likelihood of happening than most of the other stories we've covered because it's sort of already in their type of wheelhouse. Mm-hmm. It's sort of their branding and internal mechanisms are sort of aimed in this direction of happening. Mm-hmm. They like green energy. And this could work. I think this is a time where I would give a stamp of approval of calling in and leaving a comment. Be respectful. Blah, blah, blah. We know all the rules we got to follow. But what do you lose if right now every single person that called had a 1 in a 10,000 chance of altering the outcome? What easy odds?
So before we do end this segment, just real quick, because I want to add this on to Daniel's point. I'm seeing a lot of twos in the chat. Who knows when this video is clipped, how many twos will be in the comment section below. But real quick again, for that number, Kira, you posted...
It's in chat.
Yeah, it's in chat. I'm trying to look for it again.
It's in chat. It's just that my camera is backwards, so it's extremely confusing to me.
Right. So the number is 202-353-1555. Look, be respectful when you're going to leave a message.
We want to convince these people.
Yeah. We want to get Stephen Donziger out from behind bars. I think if you're Republican or Democrat or Independent, no matter what age group you are in, we can all agree. You should not be in house arrest for 2 years. 2+ years, or even be behind bars for a misdemeanor for 6 months. It's ridiculous. Let's work together on this one and get Stephen Donziger out of prison. All right, let's make it happen. With that being said, we're going to move on. With that being said, we're going to move on now to our next segment. Before we do, I actually want to give a shout out to Case Study QB, actually, who's in the live stream chat, and also he was on Sabrina's show, and on yesterday's show, we actually showed on incognito mode how Twitter is censoring his page, even though he's posting videos from corporate media.
Again, I still think that is hysterical. Yeah. Not anything. We're all for Case Study, but the fact that when corporate media publishes crap, everyone's like, "Oh yes, give that a lot of authoritative bonuses." But when a regular citizen of this country takes those same clips and says, "I'm going to put him here," Twitch is like, "I flag this as bad fake news."
Yep, there we go.
I think that's funny. I've always thought it's funny.
Well, Case Study QB is doing some phenomenal work. In fact, we do have a video of some of his work very soon. But before we do, we got something here on Rockfin. Let's see what's going on Rockfin. True Democracy Now. First, Roger Meadows, tip $2. I got nervous at Dot. I gave you too much homework that you said, "Damn, Roger swamped me with work." Not Roger Meadows. True Democracy Now, tip $2 as well. Let's stop protesting our Department of Justice. Let's stop protesting our Department of Justice, which citizens have no control over. The only way Donziger can be freed from this illegal imprisonment is by Biden, who can pardon him immediately.
Yeah, but we can't reach out to Biden. He doesn't know what Twitter is.
Yes,
and he'll fall asleep. Yeah, I mean, if you have a few $100,000 to get a lobbyist in his ear, that's the only way you're going to reach him. Maybe if you get Kamala's attention.
Yeah, maybe. But then she'll probably laugh.
Yeah.
And I'll be just creepy. You'll want to walk out of there.
Give her big enough check.
All right. Well, yeah. Then you'd be like Steve Mnuchin.
Hey, I heard that you want to make a library for the presidential. Would you like a installment of $100,000?
And she'd be like, yes. There we go. All right. That's a horrible impression. All right. With that being said, Kira, you've got a story for the people. What is going on?
I do. So, friend of the show and New York State organizer Roger Meadows actually inspired me this week to focus a little bit more on local politics and ballot measures. One of the reasons I agreed to do this show over 2 years ago now is because as a lifelong political activist, I wanted to get other folks involved in community organizing. And basically, the progressive side of the spectrum needs people power because we don't have the money that the elites in the corporate, wing of our government does. So we'll never win in the money world. So we definitely need people power. It reminded me actually of a Hidden Brain episode that I listened to a really long time ago with Shankar Vedantam, where he interviews this guy named Eitan Hirsch, who's a political scientist at Tufts University. He studies voting, elections, and how we participate in politics in his book, Politics is for Power. And he makes a case that millions of Americans are engaging in politics in ways that are emotionally satisfying, but ultimately self-defeating. He says that the way that people are doing politics is much more similar to a hobby than what politics is meant for, which is for acquiring power. So folks will learn a lot of facts and talk about those facts. Like they'll go online and share memes, have discussions, very similar to how like the sports fan might talk about sports or listen to sports radio. He argues that some of the evidence in the rise of political hobbyism is a decline in interest in elections that are local versus national. So according to fairvote.org, Faze, will you pull that graph up that I sent to you earlier today? According to fairvote.org, 60% of eligible voters turn out for national elections versus 40% in local ones. And here is actually from 1789 to 2020, what it has looked like as far as voting in national elections versus local elections. And largely people turn out for national elections because there's a lot of like celebrity that happens inside of national elections. And, you know, a lot of the local issues come off or as boring for a lot of voters. So when you look at groups on both parties, or particularly on the left that are involved in community organizing, basically you see women and people of color. And when you're online and you survey people about how interested they are in politics, you know, and how many facts they know about politics, that's predominantly men. But I'm on board with what Roger pushes. We need to be active at a local level. And I'm not just talking about voting. I'm talking on the streets, canvassing, lobbying, raising money, demonstrating. And, you know, while it's fun to really hate on Republicans and corporate Democrats, it doesn't really win us any power. And so, you know, this Eitan guy says, instead of hating on the other side, we should be asking ourselves, how can I get them to come over to my side? So I wanted to use my time during this first story to share about some of the progressive ballot measures that are happening nationwide that people can actually get involved in and start moving the needle in a progressive direction on a local level. Keep in mind the Supreme Court just passed precedent that literally says that foreign money is allowed to influence local ballot measures. We did that story, I forget, like 4 weeks ago or something like that. And that is a really scary and dangerous precedent. So we need all hands on deck now. There are so many potential ballot initiatives right now across the country. And Faze, yeah, bringing up ballotpedia there.org, and you can go and you can more thoroughly scroll through this. But if you look at this, you'll see that these aren't just progressive ballot measures, but there are several progressive ballot measures intermingled with a lot of conservative ballot measures. Regardless, these are all things that, you know, at the very least, go and vote in your local municipal elections, but also maybe take a look at your list, find your state here, and look at some of the ballot measures that are either going to be on your ballots in this upcoming election, or take a look at what they're trying to get on the ballots, you know, because you can actually take part in getting things on ballots, you know, and beyond that, you know, if you're working 8 jobs, which is, you know, very American of you, according to George W. Bush, you know, I get it, right? But at the very least, be familiar with the ballot initiatives that are going on in your area, in your state, so that we can really start moving the needle in a progressive direction. Because I think that what we're really starting to, I mean, some of us have been seeing it for a while. Some of us are just, you know, becoming aware of it. But I think on the larger level nationally, we are, you know, all of us really starting to wake up in a way in regards to our national legislators, basically, you know, realizing that they're not on our team. And so we have to be on our own team. And so I hopefully, this little tidbit is an encouragement for you, inspiration for you to start looking at what you can get involved with. So check that out on ballotpedia.org. All of the ballot measures that are going on or potentially going on. Some of them still need signatures, which you can totally do. It's pretty easy to get involved in things. And if you want leadership positions, that's really easy to do too, because a lot of these organizations really are desperate to have help. So that's really what I wanted to share today. Any thoughts from you guys?
So I think this is sort of like, this is why I really like what Roger says. This is what it's all about. This is what politics is, how humans organize power. Always has been, always will. It's up to us as the people to find the places where we can build power so we can act, and not just act as a final hurrah, I hope this works, if it doesn't, we're falling apart, as we've already seen so consistently, and especially progressive circles that aren't well organized, aren't well funded. They just don't have any real staying power. Whereas I don't want to build a machine that's able to throw one punch. I want to build a machine that can repeatedly punch. And even if I missed, that doesn't matter. I can still... Again, this is the mission of the creation of Hard Lens Media and 99 Perspectives. It was our way of saying, we've been playing with memes, we've been doing all this stuff for years, and then we finally got Wolfpack, and we finally got that amendment done. And it was that moment where I was like, wow, 20 people got a constitutional amendment against corruption passed in the fourth most corrupt state in the union. That is amazing. That is something. It's just a strike team, a special ops team can change lots of things. Now, obviously, we know what happened with Wolfpack, and that was out of our hands, but we got our stuff done, and we got it done efficiently. Mm-hmm. We figured out how to get people running an office, and it turns out, politicians are actually really cheap. And it was like, hey, what would you do to co-sponsor this anti-corruption bill? If you guys knocked on like 500 houses for me, that'd be good. That's nothing. That's like an entire day of like two people working, and you can pull something out of that. And it's especially easier to do on a local level. So I think getting ballot measures where applicable is good. Getting elected officials locally to pass laws that make ballot measures a thing is really good. But the key is, and I think Carrie really hit it, is if you're just going to do this as a hobbyist, then you're just doing it as a hobbyist. You're not doing more. It's a hobby. It's like watching, anything else on YouTube or anything else. It's like watching Animal Planet. Yeah. You learn a lot about animals. You aren't saving any animals. It's the people that actually dedicate the time, even if it's a little or as much as you can do in a very busy schedule. If you can get your entire block of people to, in a local area, to bound together and then go from politician to politician running for office to say, we'll knock on 1,000 doors for you, but we want your commitment on this, this, and this. And if you don't do it, the next election cycle, we're going to be the other side voting against you. And then if they go against you, don't disappear. Don't go, oh, no, it didn't. It fell apart. We know what we can do. You say, we're going to take them out, and then we're going to replace them with someone better. We need to do exactly what the people against us are doing, but we have to do it from the point of view of the people. They have money. Okay, we have volunteers.
So here's the thing, what I want to say, because first of all, number one, Kira, fantastic reporting on ballot measures, because we talk about this on the show. Daniel, that's a hard act to follow up. So I wanted to say a couple of things. First of all, I think Ecuadorian Taco 27 says it best. He's taking your words away. Win by winning with a multi-punch machine. And number two, what do I say on the show when it comes down to this midterm election cycle that's going to be coming up, as well as Chicago's municipal election cycle, as well as the 2024 election cycle will be coming up? You don't have to I'm going to vote. I will participate in the elections. I will use my vote. I will participate in electoral politics, but I won't do it in the traditional means of voting for Team Red or Team Blue.
Yeah.
I said this on the show, and I want to be consistent about it. I'm going to be supporting ballot initiatives. and we'll be talking about ballot initiatives on our show. I'm going to be talking about supporting initiatives to build strong infrastructure for third parties. Are third parties going to win in this election cycle that's coming up? Probably not, but if we build the infrastructure up, okay, we got something else that's working in our favor. If we start building strong grassroots movements that are not connected to these politicians and actually start implementing these ballot measures to the point where Daniel's saying we win by winning by being consistent and fighting, we do this. We fight for election integrity. We can do this. But the point is not falling into the trap of the typical vote red or blue. It's time to walk away from that and start looking at different paths to a better future and to real election integrity and to actually getting our democracy back.
And, well, I was just going to throw in, this is kind of like, it's going to be different from every perspective that you build and every group you make. But I think I said this before. I don't want, like, just because we're media, we come at it from a media perspective especially. I don't ever want to be in the mindset of how do we get X candidate here in Chicago to come on the show. That's, I think, a losing mindset. I think the winning mindset is how do we get ourselves in a position that politician is going to be terrified of not coming on our show.
And actually them begging us to have them on their show. And by the way, again, look, we will be covering the election cycle. We'll be talking about ballot initiatives, but hey, we're going to have candidates on the show from third parties. And yes, we bring an invite to Republican and Democratic candidates that are running as well. But let's face it, you come on Hardlens Media, you're going to be entering the lion's den. And we're not going to play around. We're not going to screw around. So I think it's only fair enough to say, also as a final heads up for our viewing audience, know the rules and regulations of your state laws when it comes out to voting. Know your rights as a voter in your state. That way you have the information to be prepared for anything that might be thrown your way. Because let's face it, we don't have election integrity in this country, but we got to fight for it. So with that being said, Kira, since this is your story, do you have any other final notes?
Definitely do have final notes. One of the big traps that I find people who are well-meaning and want to be involved find themselves in is that there are too many moving targets, right? And so my best piece of advice, as somebody who has been an activist since 2003 and an organizer since 2009, is to find like the one thing that lights your fire and go after that. Find the organization that, pushes for whatever it is you're pushing for. They probably already exist. Don't reinvent the wheel. Now, if they don't already exist, then, there are more steps to take in regard to that. But I'm telling you, there's probably already an organization that's doing what it is you're passionate about. So I highly recommend just focusing on one thing. The other piece is that if you have money to spare, money is really helpful also. Don't turn your nose up at the thought of like just giving money. It is hugely needed in these organizations to actually make things go. To when an organization can pay people or can purchase flyers or some kind of ad space or something like that, that can be a massive help for that organization. So that's also another avenue that you can go down to be a part of our push toward basically a more just union.
And just really quick, because again, everything always goes back to rules for rulers. And like, even for us, our keys are our Patreon supporters. If every single Patreon supporter was not there, that is there now, Hardlens literally just couldn't function. It would just not be able to be, because again, exactly what we've said 1,000 times. I don't even have to go into how hard it is to run a political channel on YouTube in this environment, and how everything's restricted across the board on basically every independent channel. The fact that we have Patreon, the fact that there are people there that are in chat and doing everything else, but really allowing us to financially exist is the difference between this show happening every weekday and not. So it's a huge deal to be able to even like where we're at, which is like the bare level of like funding. The fact that we have that and we can count on that support, again, is literally the difference between this happening and not. And that's everyone working together in small donations that made that happen.
All right. With that being said, we're going to move on now to our next segment. Before we do, FaZe, do we have anything on Rockfin and Odyssey from our viewing audience in regards towards any chats or anything else of that matter? By the way, I want to give a huge shout out to our moderators that are keeping the peace. And by the way, huge shout out to my 2 colleagues, Daniel and Kira, who's doing such a fantastic job. We got something here on the Rockfin real quick. Let's find out what it is or what is going on. I think our friend Roger Meadows wants to chime in. Oh, it's from True Democracy Now! Tip $2. Thank you so much on Rockfin. We always have 2 choices in every election. It's not between political parties, but it's between the politicians we elect and ourselves. We can elect politicians that will make political decisions for us to follow and obey, or we can elect politicians that will follow and obey our political decisions instead. We just need to learn how, especially in local elections. Go to his website, truedemocracynow.org. Roger Meadows, I knew he'd tip in on this one. Tip $2. Thank you so much. In Kansas and Kentucky, legislative proposals asking voters to amend state constitution to make abortions illegal. Nevada has one to lift minimum wage to $12. Oh my goodness! By 2024, when annual Out of Reach project report that suggests it should be a little over $21 today. Illinois amends state constitution make collective bargaining a constitutional right. Tennessee asking voters to amend a constitution and make them right to work. Don't only know. Let's see. What state is that? Baltimore. BI's. Oh my goodness. Ballot initiatives. Don't only know ballot initiatives to vote for, but against. Yes. So yeah, you need to know what ballot initiatives support and what not to support too. There we go. That's very important, folks. So there we go. Roger Meadows, source of information. Be sure to follow him on Twitter. He's doing some fantastic work in New York State. So with that being said, we're going to be covering a story.
Roger Meadows, another person who's legitimately going all in to upend power structures in New York.
There we go. Roger Meadows. Don't mess with him. He's with Hardlands Media. Okay? You mess with him, you mess with us. So there you go. Simple as that. Now, Daniel, I think a lot of our viewing audience have been waiting for this story.
Oh, yeah.
It was our boy Fredo. What is going on?
It's a sad case of fettuccine out at CNN right now. Oh, boy. Hey, you ever work at a company where you, are connected with someone that's sexually harassing a number of women, and then the company goes, no, you're fine, you can stay, it was different enough. Oh, right, no one. Okay, that's right, no one has that experience, just people on the very top. And then remember that then after that, you're like, I had nothing to do with it. It was just, I don't know, I'm not lying. I'm definitely not lying. And only to find out that someone leaked that you were, in fact, lying. And then that said company was like, you're fired, except they didn't. Because, of course, that would happen. They're like, you're suspended indefinitely, which is a nice way of saying you're suspended until people change their mind around you. Then we'll bring you back because your connections are why you've been hired in the first place.
Not because you do a good job.
No, not because you do a good job, but because you're well connected. And as a news organization, an authoritative one at that, they care about your political connections more than you whether or not you helped someone in power abuse a number of women and their power, and then used a media organization to promote that, and then was like, oh, and then that whole thing with the vaccines, I can't even talk about, where he's like, I'm sick now. Anyway, and then you could do all of that, and then also be the guy that's like, it's fettuccine all N-word. You get that right. I'm not a failure in this family. This guy is just an absolute failure, and it's an absolute disgrace that he's not fired. Again, we know the reason why, because they're waiting to give him another chance, because it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. They don't care. Everyone, this is my whole thing on like where PC is. All the people that are pushing the most with the most power for PC are the people that care the least about it, but are trying to get in front of their own terribleness by not acting. And that's, of course, corporations, because corporations are people, my friend. Anyway, I thought I'd hear it right from CNN themselves. They issued a very short video. They're probably not going to talk about it again, about how their boy, the guy that they stood with all this time, after groups like us have said that he's terrible, after everyone said that he's terrible, and like, why is he even there? Oh, right, he's the failed son of a political dynasty. But let's hear it from a bunch of highly paid millionaires that have no idea what they're doing on what's happening next.
CNN is suspending anchor and our colleague, Chris Cuomo, indefinitely. New documents revealed he was more involved than previously known in shaping the defense for his brother, former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, who faced sexual misconduct allegations. Brian Stelter joins me now with the news on this. Brian.
Yeah, some news about our own house here, John. And of course, Chris, a former co-anchor of New Day, now CNN's primetime host, one of the highest rated hosts on CNN. This was a long time coming.
You hear that? That's the big news. That's the word. That's the key. That's the everything. one of the highest rated hosts, as in he brings us in the most money because he lied about who he is and everything's about and what he did and who he supported. But we don't need to go into that. He's highly rated. Let's keep playing the video.
Cuomo in the news all year long because of his brother and because of the scandal involving the now former governor. It was known that Chris Cuomo was talking to his brother, giving political advice. But in the newly released documents, you can see that Chris Cuomo is essentially working as an unpaid advisor and
Pause it again.
as if he is a...
Man, it'd be nice if there was, I don't know, in those events, when the first set of events happened, if there were just some news organization that could dig deeper into the facts to make sure something like this wouldn't happen. But I guess there is no news organization, is there? Let's keep going.
Staffer of the governor's, giving political advice, giving commentary, also working his own sources to try to find out more about what might be revealed about his brother. Here's the statement from CNN overnight about the suspension, saying, when Chris admitted to us that he had offered advice to his brother's staff, he broke our rules and we acknowledged that publicly. But we also appreciated the unique position he was in.
Okay, pause that. Pause that. There you go again. There you go again. Oh, man. We agreed that he broke rules that anyone else would have been fired for. But with his unique position and access to the ear of a New York governor and those sort of connections, we decided the rules didn't need to apply to him. And so when he said he had nothing to do with the thing that he had something to do with, we said, what are we, a news organization? Okay, you can stay.
And job second. However, these documents point to a greater level of involvement in his brother's efforts than we previously knew. And as a result, we have suspended Chris indefinitely pending further evaluation.
Okay.
So that's the statement.
Pause it right
CNN.
there. Okay, so a couple things. Let me start with the second part first. For future evaluation, the entire problem that you're in this position to begin with is because of future evaluation standards that you've applied to this case and to begin with. So what CNN is saying, and as I said already, is he's suspended hopefully without pay, maybe a stipend, I don't know, indefinitely until something in the future happens, i.e., we'd really like to get him back. That dude was making a lot of money. We really don't care at all that he was helping sexually harass women. Who cares about sexually harassing women? This is CNN. We're not about that life. We're not even a news organization. We're just an authoritative source to some that can throw their weight around. But we have to investigate further. Can anyone tell me anyone in your life that has gotten away with more than that? How many people in any amount of companies could be outed for sexual harassment or assisting with someone doing so in a very blatant way, admit that, yes, he broke the rules in doing that, but he's okay to stay. It was a unique situation. He was connected. And then when more documents come out, go, oh, we had no idea that the person was doing the thing that they said they were doing, that they also denied doing. We took them at their word, even though they lied about being truthful. We're CNN. By the way, isn't it fascinating how the authoritative sources seem to have the most people either directly or adjacent to criminals?
If I can add in something here real quick. First of all, Daniel, you said everything that needed to be said, but there's a couple other things too that CNN, an authoritative source on social media, especially on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. Hey, YouTube! Talking to you for a second, YouTube, because after all, you give CNN and Fox and MSNBC so much clout and so much. Are you going to actually, I guess, hold CNN's YouTube channel accountable for the fact that good old Chris Cuomo was doing some very shady things that no journalist or any respectable journalist outlet should do? Are you going to demonetize his videos now? Are you going to start suppressing CNN? I also want to add something else because this is very important, what's enraging me.
Devastating point, Ken.
Yes, hold on. There's a couple other devastating points I want to say to CNN and to YouTube and CNN's YouTube channel. Chris Cuomo, a journalist who is giving advice to his political brother, a very powerful position, governor. A governor that's dealing with scandals. Now, first, I want to say one thing to the women who have heroically stepped forward. They did the right thing by doing so. This is one scandal. But there's a few other scandals, too, that need to be addressed. Let's talk about the deaths of American citizens in the state of New York, senior citizens whose friends and families are still asking questions about why many of their deaths were omitted from the records, especially when, during the height of the pandemic, New York State was saying at the time that they had low death rates. Turns out that number is far higher. Those are flesh and blood human beings. Was Chris Cuomo, giving advice to his brother in regards to how to handle that nursing home disaster too? What about the fact that when Daniel covered on our show where, I don't know, Governor Cuomo was using prison labor to make hand sanitizer? Did Chris Cuomo give him advice about how to handle that little scandal as well? What about, using state resources to write his also fantastic book about leadership? Did Chris Cuomo give him advice on that too? You see CNN as a journalist outlet. Remember, one of your boys, I covered this on the show, said he wants CNN to go back to its roots of journalism. So I guess your roots of journalism, I guess CNN really truly isn't a journalist outlet. Now, is it? Now, these are some very questionable behaviors from CNN, and the fact that you choose to suspend him indefinitely, these are grounds of being fired, because how much advice did Chris Cuomo give to Andrew Cuomo in regards to all these scandals, including the women who have come forward about the abuse allegations and so much more? These are questions that then I have to ask YouTube, its policy. What are you going to do to CNN's YouTube channel now? YouTube, what are you going to, because these are some questionable things, because I know if Hard Lens Media did this, or any other independent media network did this, you'd come on down them with a hammer. Because I know when we covered that story about Joe Rogan being smeared by CNN, YouTube, you smeared us and you said that we were talking about medical misinformation. We were talking about how CNN was just smearing Joe Rogan. That's all I want to say. I know you want to add in something, and I know Kira does too.
Quick point that ties into what we said earlier before Kira jumps in. You know what is a real injustice in this world right now? The fact that CNN is declared an authoritative source when they are not a journalistic organization that doesn't have an investigative team. They just are a bunch of reactors that take themselves a bit too seriously and get paid quite a bit too much from rich families where they failed as useful parts of that family. The real tragedy is that Cuomo's segments are still on YouTube and they're still generating high CPM money for CNN, and that's fine with YouTube and Twitter. But if someone like, I don't know, Case Study QB takes that content and clips it and puts it on Twitter, all of a sudden now it's fake news. This is the structure that we live in.
Kira, your commentary.
Oh man, I don't know that I can really add much to that. I mean, other than this is a classic conflict of interest situation. It's always been a conflict of interest. And so it's funny, in that clip they mention, he's the highest rated and he brings in the most money. And they do that to show how integrous they are, when in reality, they have been letting this fly under the radar all of these years and just raking in all of the benefits and money that go along with having someone like Cuomo on the air. I mean, it was hilarious. My husband this morning said, hey, they're suspending, Cuomo indefinitely because apparently he had a lot more to do, with this whole scandal with his brother. And I was like, well, yeah, they're brothers. And when that is my reaction, then what that tells me is that this was always a conflict of interest. This isn't new. And the fact that it was allowed to go on for so long is insulting, I guess, is what's there for me.
And that's the thing that people need to remember fundamentally about what we're talking about. What we're talking about, for us, it's like we're kind of YouTube is put us in a position where we're sort of screwed in terms of being able to really invest a lot more into what Hard Lens does. And because of the way the economy is, we can't really fully lean into Patreon. It's the amount of people that have discretionary funds to spend are basically already doing that. So we have a history, our first 2 years especially, of just doing nothing but investigative pieces, going out, talking to people, finding what's happening. And that is not easy work to do. Nor on that time, Facebook was not promoting it. It's not easy work to do. And so we have a little bit of an actual reason, which is we just don't have as many hours in the day to do all of the stuff we're doing, and then also constantly, we just need more people to help. We need more work hours that we just can't find. CNN, but the point is that our thought is, in a bigger step, is we want people that are committed to doing this, that are looking to find truth and spread it to the masses. CNN, NBC, Fox do not operate in that fashion. The way they operate with individual hires is, do you have a connection in the Senate? Do you have a connection in the House? Do you have a connection on the executive branch? Do you have a connection in the judiciary? Oh, you don't? Get out of my office. Oh, you were an investigative reporter that for 10 years did this and this and exposed all these things. Get out. We're not interested. We live at a time where the authoritative sources fire journalists that don't have sources of people in power. That's what they call journalism. I call it a circle jerk. That's what is it? Yellow journalism. It's not accomplishing anything. All they're really saying is, hey, do you have a line to this person? And again, if you set that up in that way, what of course happens? Well, you call the person up and you go, hey, what are you doing? And they say something that's not good. Do you go, oh, that's really, why would you do that? That's your, oh, you lost your source and then you got fired. So instead, what do? You spin it. You act as a spin doctor and you spin it. And that's exactly what Cuomo did the entire time with his brother. He was the source to a huge amount of power and influence in New York City and around that because of his connections of his family. Again, that's why they take the failures of these big families and throw them in there, because that's the only thing they're really good for, is access to connections and networking. The second, again, so that's why they don't hire people like you and me into a CNN position. It's because all they care about is those connections and if you have enough ratings. Because, let me say this is going to be really weird. They're entertainment channels. And that's how entertainment channels measure things. The way that CNN measures their success is the way that I measure success on their reaction channel where we laugh at video games. Same metric, done the exact same way for the exact same reason, because they have not, for a very long time, been a news organization. They just brand themselves as one.
But Dan, remember, there was that guy who's connected to CNN who wants to see CNN evolve back to its roots. Oh, wait, that was never its roots in the first place. We're having a little bit too much fun with the story, so I think we should end this on a humorous note. Fredo, it was you, Fredo. It was you. Well. Well, that's a little Godfather reference. Anyways, folks, hey, let's have some democracy in the chat. Type 1 if you think CNN will ever return back to its journalistic roots. Type 2 if you think, God damn it, never. So there we go. With that being said, we're going to move on now to our next story. Before we do, FaZe, do we have anything on Rockfin or Odyssey from our viewing audience? By the way, I think our audience is really enjoying our commentary on this section. So
it's good when I have energy.
There we go.
I feel like I do a better job.
There we go. All right.
Because me performing properly is relevant to what we do here.
There we go. All right. Shout out to our
crazy
audience.
idea.
You make it happen. We also got something here on Rockfin. Let's find out what's going on Rockfin. It's from Roger Meadows, tip $2. I want to be clear, I'm not leading the way here. I'm doing what I can to help those who's leading the way in New York State. That's true, Roger, but you are a fighter and a leader, in my opinion.
He has a good humility.
There we go.
Absolutely.
There are others way more committed to each of these policies than I am, because they pick one and focus on it. Campaign for New York healthcare, housing justice for all, focus on homeless, New York Equity Agenda Pub, banks, worker co-ops, New York RE News, focus on climate, reimagine, LIP focus on public power for Long Island. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Roger Mel's, hey, you let us know about, so you're leading the way so we can know about these people so that they're fighting for that better future. So there we go. Speaking of which, we're now going to move on to our next segment, and this story is going to be difficult to really talk about. It is from a good friend of the show, Case Study QB, and it has to deal with what's happening in West Virginia, Mansions, West Virginia, and how, look, a story I think we all can relate to, all of us here.
And according to Twitter, they also agree with us that this story is BS.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
I think, by the way, Case Study, I think you're still in chat somewhere. I think you should really use the fact that when you posted it's bad and when they posted it's good to make the point that their stuff is all just terrible.
Yes, but this story is devastating to listen to because we're all impacted. In one way or another, we're all struggling in this terrible nightmare that we are in, economically, emotionally, and this is just one person. But I think we've all dealt with something like this, and there are millions of more Americans going through this too. So let's play this first video. Again, it's going to be difficult. Let's play it.
This week, we're going to focus on one big piece of the Build Back Better plan, one that is personal for me as a mother of 2 young kids, and that's the fight for paid family leave. You have heard me talk about it before. The version of the Build Back Better plan that passed the House includes 4 weeks of paid leave. Right now, the United States is the only developed nation without it, but it is unclear right now and almost unlikely that that 4-week provision will survive negotiations in the Senate because of this man right here, Senator Joe Manchin, who has been especially outspoken in his opposition to paid leave as part of the Build Back Better plan, which is why we reached out to parents in his home state of West Virginia to hear their stories and what they want. We asked many of them to share their stories, and we will be sharing one day in their life each day this week, a video diary showing all of us the realities facing parents without paid family leave. And today, I want to introduce you to Brianna Dietrich, a West Virginia mother of 5. And while Brianna was pregnant with her now 3-month-old, that cute baby seen right here, she struggled with health issues. It was so bad one day that she told her managers at her job that she needed to go to the hospital. She says they said no, so she walked out the door, and she's been out of work ever since. Her husband's job takes him hundreds of miles away, leaving her at home with the 5 kids alone, and still his single income is not enough. So here's one day in the life of West Virginia mother Brianna Dietrich.
Hi, my name's Brianna Dietrich. I am from Wheeling, West Virginia. Altogether, we have 5 children, kids ages 16 and 14, both girls, boys 13 and 12, and then our almost 4-month-old. It's just about 3 in the morning. I just got the baby down. I got some bottles washed. Just do laundry, but I gave up. It's 3 in the morning. I have to take my daughters to the bus stop at 6:15 in the morning. It's 1:30 afternoon. I don't think I've brushed my hair yet. Sitting here trying to figure out.
All right, there's another video that I'll play. I want to play that as well so we can give this person all the respect. Go ahead.
Sorry, just to throw in, sort of connected to what I was saying before. I just want to throw this in. That their anchor for this, to make my point from earlier, is the daughter of someone who was an anchor before.
Okay, so it's all interconnected.
That's what I'm trying to, yeah.
Okay, nepotism at its finest. But this is a story that's very serious because, again, what this woman is going through, there are millions of Americans, people that we all know, and each of us in our own right are going through our own struggles as well. But this is very real. Again, huge shout out to Case Study QB who found this clip. So let's play this video if we can face.
I have 25 miles of gas left in my car. I have 2 days until my husband gets paid. I have to pick up my 2 daughters from the bus stop. Me and the baby run to the other school, pick up my boys. I'm tired of being stressed, and I'm smiling because what else am I going to do when I pretty much lost my job while I was pregnant? That there's no help in our country at all, or state, anything for new moms. About 5 o'clock, I get a call from the coach. We need you at practice now. Your son is hurt. He hit his head. So I run and get my son because he dented the door frame with his head, and we're in the ER now. I don't get to pay any of one whole bill. I get to put a little bit towards the rent that I'm behind on, a little of my electric, a little of this, a little of that. My husband's not here. He's out of town working. He's over 600 miles away.
It's hard being a parent, also hard being a small business owner and losing your employees. I've talked to many small businesses, though, who say that, hey, listen, we'd love the idea of a federal paid leave program so we don't have to continue.
Pause it. Did she literally just go from this story? Like, this is a story. This is whenever I see these stories on, like, NBC or anything, I always go, they're just doing this for the money.
It's disaster porn.
And it's disaster porn. because it's like this is the same network that is enabling all of this to happen in the first place. Is the same network that then turns around and goes, it just sucks she's in this situation. Is the same one that like takes the story and is like, oh, it really sucks, but you know what really sucks? Small businesses having to pay taxes for their workers. Am I right, folks? They shouldn't have to do that, folks.
To rehire and to retrain our valued employees. It means retention is better. It means they're able to be stronger in their own businesses. We're going to continue sharing stories just like Brianna's all week long. I know you've heard me say it, but I think it's more powerful coming from individual parents, mothers like Brianna. We're going to have some dads here as well.
Great point, Kit. Yeah.
Not only stories again of moms, but dads
They're
too.
not taking this reasonable. And by the way, the fact that she started like, I relate to this. I also have children.
Yeah, no, she got 6 figures salary.
I think here's the thing. Maybe I'm wrong. Guys, you can tell me in chat if I'm wrong on this, but I think maybe the differentiating factor, let's say, isn't I also have offspring. Maybe it's I also have experienced poverty with offspring. Those things kind of go together. I don't see a lot of like billionaires doing, oh, I only have a gallon of tank in the can and the gas tank.
That woman already has leave from her job. She's already in a position of privilege when it comes to that. So I agree. I thought it was a little humorous when she's like, this really hits home for me because I have 2 of my own kids. And it's like, yeah, 2 of your own kids that you probably had parental leave for, because God knows how much money, and having a nanny and all of that. Now, to be fair, and Kit, I thought your point was really, really good on this, and I just want to shed some light on it because you said it kind of in passing, but they should have been doing this all through 2020 and 2021, because personal stories are what move people. And so when I saw that MSNBC was highlighting people who are really struggling, I was like, oh, that's really great. But now family leave, if we get it at all in this Build Back Better bullshit, the BBB is going to be 4 weeks. I think I saw something come out from Robert Reich in Twitter yesterday, where he talks about how the next lowest in family leave for developed countries is like 50 weeks or something. I can't even imagine having that much time to actually, be with my children and be supported by my government in that. So I think it's a great idea to share personal stories to move people. And it is too little too late. And on top of that, where are my notes on this? We don't need to move people on this topic. If you look at any of the polling that talks about family leave, you'll see that the vast majority of people actually support family leave. One of the latest polls that I had found before the show was an advocacy group called Paid Leave for All Action, surveyed 1,070 likely voters from 7 battleground states, even Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, and found that 84% of likely voters, including 74% of Republicans, support paid leave programs. So 69% of those polled, including 55% of surveyed Republicans, would support a federal leave standard, even if they'd have to pay more in taxes to sustain it. So too little too late, and their aim is wrong, right? We don't need to be convincing voters that we need leave. We need to be shaming the shit out of this guy mansion.
Yeah, well, here's something I do.
Curse more. This is so ridiculous.
I'm gonna actually disagree in a way that I'm gonna agree with you. I think you're not going far enough. I don't think this is too little too late. I think this is intentionally doing a story like this. You know what? You'll never see a story like this in the middle of a crisis. You'll never see a continued set of, wow, everything's falling apart. let's talk to the people that are getting hit the most. No. At times like that, you always see, let's turn to our stock market analyst who's going to tell us how your investments are doing. So first of all, anytime they pull a story like this or a string of stories, there's going to be some exceptions to what I'm saying, but generally I'm saying exactly what I mean. These stories only happen when it is the most irrelevant time to do them. We're in a spot where what do you get the story right? No, it doesn't matter right now. All the stuff that would happen, they never tied these to bills. They never, when people were about to lose their unemployment benefits because of Biden, you didn't see story after story of people going, let's talk to this person. Here's how this money, what does this money mean to you, sir? Wow, this is the thing that keeps me from being kicked out of my... No. What they do at those times is they go, man, those people aren't even trying to apply for jobs. What lazy Americans are they? These stories, I can tell you exactly what happened when this story got put together. Man, guys, we don't have a lot of stories today. Just pick one of the old things we did with those poor people. They love those. That's the story. That's how it got put in. That's the thought that went into it. That's the journalistic story they're trying to carry. And then at the very end, what do they do with that entire story that we watched? They tied it to how small business owners shouldn't get taxed. The entire point of the story, the way they spun it, had nothing to do with the mother at all.
Yep. I also want to add something else. That is pretty much, I'm going to take the words from Jimmy Dore, Chicago's very own, by the way. In 2020, your favorite Democratic and Republican lawmaker in the House and Senate abandoned us. We didn't get UBI. We didn't get Medicare for all, any kind of debt forgiveness, and nothing. We got nothing. We got abandoned. Now, the thing is, I'm seeing in the chat how other countries have 51, 52 weeks of paid family leave. The United States, measly 4 weeks, and that's something that Manchin's saying, oh, that's just too much. It's going to hurt businesses. This is a sick country we're in. And this disaster point that we're seeing covered by corporate media that's authoritative by YouTube and Twitter standards and so many other social media platforms. We here at Heartland's Media have been talking about how we've been abandoned, how working class citizens, no matter what your political affiliation, how we've all been abandoned. Jimmy Dore's talked about it. Mikasu Kasa's talked about it. Convo Kasa's talked about it. Lee Camp. So many others have talked about this. And it's only going to get worse. That's why I'm saying for this 2020 election cycle, I want to just rephrase the whole thing with ballot initiatives. Know what ballot initiatives are in your state. Know which ones to fight for and which ones to stand against. Support infrastructure for building third parties. Now more than ever, we have to support grassroots movements that are going to be fighting for that better future. Because relying on these politicians, this stop story that we saw from mainstream media, they only do that to get the views and plug the old heartstrings. Let's stop this and actually end it and fight for that better future. That being said, we're going to move on now to our next segment. Before we do we have anything on Odyssey or Rockfin? Oh, I'm sorry. I know. I just got Face angry at me for a second. Hold on.
What happened?
Face gave me an angry face. Sorry, Face.
You're moving too quick?
I'm moving too quick. I'm sorry.
Hey, Face, put up 3 different graphics. Also, pull up the Rockfin and Odyssey. Put them on side by side and split.
No. Face, you're doing fantastic. I'm sorry. Face. I'm sorry. He'll beat me after the show. Anyway.
I'll oversee the punishment.
All right. We got Roger Meadows who tipped $2. I believe I already read that. Unless there's another one there at the bottom. Oh, here we go. Roger Meadows tipped $2. Corporate news is not news. They are PR firms for their parties, which puzzles me why just Democrats stop going on independent media where the others either hate them or try to break them. We need a constitutional amendment to abolish all political parties. Then there would be no one to protect.
You know what the real irony is about the blanket block on independent media? It actually goes against both parties' favor.
Yeah.
Because if we know that you're not going to, if all of independent media knows that Democrats and Republicans aren't going to go on their show, we're just going to rail against you because what other option do we have?
Yeah.
If Democrats were like every now and then throwing an interview to these channels, not everyone would, but a number of channels like TRT would be like, oh, we'll be good. Just send us more interviews, please. So it's stupid on every front.
I'm gonna get in trouble. Hang on. I'm gonna get in trouble in 3, 2, 1. Or you can see what happened with Kyle and Crystal when Bernie Sanders just cut them off his own show.
Yeah. It's like if we can't, as independent media, ever be in a position where we beg for interviews That's what I was saying earlier, because you change your entire way of acting.
Oh boy. Okay, that was funny. Because you're right about that. Because because those other channels be like, "Oh, you're gonna show up on our show? Yeah.
The Democrats would do better if they did those, because they would get nicer coverage in general from independent media. But they're too stupid to even do that.
I know. Oh boy, I was being mean for no reason. All right, Kira, you got a story for the people. What is going on?
Absolutely. So, big news today. The Supreme Court was hearing arguments in Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization, which challenges the constitutionality of Mississippi's ban on abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy. Under the current precedent, the law is unconstitutional, as both the District Court and the Court of Appeals held both Roe v. Wade decided in 1973 and Planned Parenthood of Southeast Pennsylvania versus Casey decided in 1992 that a state cannot ban abortions prior to viability, which is approximately the 24th week of pregnancy. Mississippi has asked the Supreme Court to overrule that precedent. So the justices heard 90 minutes of oral arguments in the most direct challenge to Roe v. Wade in nearly 3 decades today. And it was unclear after the arguments whether the court would take the additional step of explicitly overturning its abortion precedents, including Roe versus Wade. I found an interesting take in the Hill today, though, that I wanted to bring up and just get y'all's opinion on it in regards to all of this. And really, according to her own words in 1998 law review article, Justice Amy Coney Barrett should have recused herself from deciding this case and all other abortion cases for that matter, if she has any integrity at all. In Catholic Judges in Capital Cases, which was published by the Marquette Law Review, Barrett, then a law clerk to a federal court appeals judge, and her co-author addressed the dilemma that faces devout Catholic judges in capital cases. She writes that such judges are obliged by oath, professional commitment, and demands of citizenship to enforce the death penalty, but they are also obliged to adhere to their church's teaching on moral matters. They are therefore morally precluded from enforcing the death penalty. So what does all that have to do with abortion? Barrett tells us in the same article that in the context of abortion, the case for a Catholic judge's recusal is even stronger. Unlike the death penalty, the Catholic Church's prohibitions against abortion and euthanasia are absolute. And also, unlike the death penalty, abortion and euthanasia take away innocent life. Abortion, she says, is always immoral. So if Barrett relies instead on her church's teaching on moral matters, she is manipulating the law no less than if a judge morally opposed to the death penalty finds a way to avoid imposing it in a particular case. On Barrett's own reasoning, then, her only option is to recuse herself. If she does not do so, she is, in her own words, violating her oath of office and betraying the public trust. Now, I do want to bring up that there have been cases in the past also where Justice Barrett should have been recusing herself as well, especially in regards to a case with Shell Corporation, because her father was actually employed by Shell. And from what I understand, that she did not recuse herself from that either. So we basically just have a justice that speaks out of one side of her mouth and then just does something completely different. Shocker.
But in American politics, never.
I wanted to hear what your guys' thought on this. So what is a religious judge to do?
So I'm going to first start and say, Kira, how dare you politicize the court? As we know, these people, as soon as they enter the courtroom and they put on those robes, they shed all pretense of their humanity and walk in there as pure arbiters of truth and justice. And how dare you politicize this thing? How dare you try and stack the court and make you get my point on that.
My bad.
And so I did actually listen. There's a very special interview with her where she was talking about this, and she said take backsies, and then everything was okay.
Oh, man.
And she said take backsies. I'm like, what can I say now? She's done everything she needs.
Wow. Kira, again, fantastic commentary. Daniel as well. What more can be said about this? Especially just how corrupt everything is. And with our Supreme Court justice, our justices as well, at this point, it's just more than just reforming the system. It's just you got to make sure that you can't have judges that are in there for life. Like was an example, Bruce Bader Ginsburg, who didn't
Put
retire.
AI in. It's going to do somewhat better.
You know what? I'm starting reversing my policy on AI
now. Do you remember
now.
what I said before? I think the best way we can currently elect... First of all, we have to get rid of the Senate, replace it with a direct democracy that then works at the House. I think we would have a better America if literally 5 random people's names were pulled out of a hat, and then we voted on one of those that we thought was the best. Mm-hmm. We would have a much more effective, productive country if we did that. That's how bad our system is. We'd have a better judicial system if we employed, like, just pick just a handful of all the lawyers that exist in that state and go, 5, pick one, because it'll at least have some modicum of respectability and autonomy in how these people were picked.
Yep. There you go. All right, with that being said, we're going to move on now to our final story. And again, I want to just remind our viewing audience that we are live every Monday to Friday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time on YouTube, Odyssey, and Rockfin. If you really want to support the channel, double check that you're still subscribed. Hit that ring bell notification because YouTube is unsubscribing people. People have been saying, hey, you guys are so close to 40,000 subscribers. And it's just like, oh, in all reality, we should be much higher than that.
Yeah.
And it's YouTube.
We're not authoritative.
Yes,
we don't put enough thought and effort into our stories.
And so please also subscribe to us on Rockfin and Odyssey. And also please consider being a Patreon supporter as well. Through Patreon, you're keeping us alive.
If you guys are with us by the time, I'm on this long-term path to trick YouTube into thinking we're an authoritative source by going through all... I've looked at the documents you need to fill out if you want to try and make yourself authoritative. It's not that high of a bar. You just have to do some very hard-to-do stuff that legacy media is able to do. Mm-hmm. But can you imagine a situation where YouTube's like, yep, Hardlens is authoritative source. All of a sudden, whoa, we're at 100,000 subscribers in a week. How'd that happen?
What? 100,000? You're crazy.
I remember the time before YouTube gave authoritative sources the edge on all viewership.
Yeah.
When CNN would get 2,000 video views per story.
Yeah.
Which they deserved.
Wouldn't that be a sight to see Harlan's Media finally back on top? Boy, oh boy, I remember that short window when things were going well. So let's go ahead and move on to our final story. Daniel, you got a story for people. What is going on?
I got a positive, negative story for everyone. Positive is that it worked out well. Negative in that it's Walmart and they're doing terrible things. But something happened, so let's talk about it. So Walmart was just ordered to pay someone that they sent to jail illegally $2.1 million. They're going to appeal, but we're going to go into the story of why this is happening and this bigger picture of what they're doing. So, a jury in Alabama has ordered Walmart to pay $2.1 million in damages to a woman who sued the company after she said she was wrongfully accused of shoplifting and was arrested. Ms. Nurse said Walmart associates stopped her from leaving the store when they did not believe she paid for her groceries at a self-checkout station. Didn't matter that she had the receipts or they could look it up on the footage. They're like, no, it doesn't matter. You're going to be arrested. So she was charged with shoplifting, but the criminal case was dismissed a year later for want of prosecution, which is basically we don't have evidence. Oops. She then began to receive letters. This is where it really comes in. From the law firm that said it represented Walmart, who threatened to file a civil suit against her after the charges were dismissed, unless she paid a $200 settlement fee. Now, here's the thing. They don't say this in the article, but the reason I think they're picking $200 is if you pay it, first of all, as she points out, it's much more than the cost of the groceries in question and all that she was never charged for. But what you probably also have to do is sign a document that says, I will not sue Walmart. Waive of responsibility. That's probably the main reason that they did this in the first place, is to get people to sign that, and I'm sure people do all the time. So Randy Hargrove, a Walmart spokesperson, told Insider that the company, because of course, remember, Insider, what's your job? Have connections with people in wherever you're going. What is this person doing? Reaching out to the Walmart spokesperson, the connection to talk about what they think about. So he told the Insider that he believed its employees acted properly. He added that it considered. I love how Walmart's just like, oh, we were told to pay a judgment? Piss off! And that the $2.1 million damages to exceed legal limits and would file an appeal because they have money. And they have an army full of lawyers. What do they care? They're making them do something. In making its award, the jury found that Walmart had abused a process known as civil recovery, but the same jury did not find Walmart or the law firm liable for the suit's allegations of false arrest, false imprisonment, malicious prosecution, or slander. So that's saying that the jury said, no, they did all that right, but the process in which they did with that tutor, that's the real issue that they found them guilty, which I think is interesting. But even though, again, the charges were dropped because there was no evidence. But okay. The defendants have engaged in a pattern of practice of, so this seems to be one of those punitive things that juries do. The defendants have engaged in a pattern of practice of falsely accusing innocent Alabama citizens of shoplifting and then thereby attempting to collect money from them from the innocently accused. That's the suit that we're talking about. And civil recovery is legal in Alabama and other states. It's one way for retailers to recoup losses from shoplifting. But Hargrove said, Hargrove said that Walmart discontinued its civil recovery program several years ago. Yet it still explicably hires a law firm that's following people around after they're found innocent and charging them $200. But they've definitely just moved on. I guess Walmart's just such a big company. They forgot that they're paying the retainer for someone's law services because they just make so much money they didn't notice.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a news outlet out of Mobile, Alabama, WKRG, that reported that an expert testified that Walmart and other major retailers routinely use this practice of settlements in states where the laws allow it. And the testimony stated that Walmart made hundreds of millions of dollars from the practice in a 2-year period.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
So here's the thing. Hard to do a follow-up, but I'm going to take some words from Soul Construct, who says, Walmart family is one of the richest families in this country, being the United States. Hillary, good old Hillary Clinton, worked for them, was on the board. Remember? Right. Yeah. I mean, how can we forget?
It's all about those connections. Have we not made that clear?
Yeah. If you have,
I wonder how she lost in 2016. I'm still really baffled.
She picked the wrong bank to back her. They didn't give her enough money.
How that happened? How did that happen?
Oh, in 16. I was thinking, it's so funny you said that. I literally heard you and I heard 2008. Right. This is the same thing.
True. So who says you can't learn anything here at Heartland's Media? Who says you can't have fun? So with that being said, we're going to be ending this show. We haven't done an hour and a half long segment show in a long time, but it's long overdue that we have some fun with our audience and also inform you people what is going on, because let's face it, we have to fight for that better future. I want to give a shout out to FaZe for manning the board. Shout out to our moderators for keeping the peace. Shout out to my colleague Daniel Lupker and the wonderful, incredible, outstanding, legendary Kira McCown, who's in her house, not the house right here.
She's in the house.
Well, this is my work. This is my workspace. So look at that air conditioner and the heater.
And real quick, this is a chance for you to promote any other links that you want to promote on here on our channel. So I'll give you a chance to give a shout out to all of that.
Yes, definitely. If you want to see what I do in this workspace outside of stay quarantine, go over to comfyfitness.com. I own a fitness company and we do conscious fitness, somatic movement. And we basically help people who have issues with moving, or maybe the fitness industry hasn't ever shown up for them. Those are really the folks that come into our midst, and we find ways to help them find joy in their movement.
Absolutely. And by the way, Heartland's Media is live every Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time on YouTube, Odyssey, and Rockfin. Please consider supporting us on Patreon as well. That will really help us out through Patreon. By the way, share our content on social media. Be sure to subscribe to Chicago Corner. They're live Tuesdays and Fridays at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. We got something real quick here on Rockfin. Let's acknowledge that before we go to our Patreon show. Roger Meadows tipped $2. I don't know whether Congress is stupid or lazy. It's both, Roger. That's the answer to your question.
Yes. And
yes.
They are corrupted too.
Maybe you should do a poll on that. Congress had almost 50 years to pass a law cementing abortion into law. Instead, the Supreme Court of the United States ruled on it, so it is law. Third branch of government doesn't make law. Congress does. The courts don't have the final say. Congress does, but we have the final say over Congress. We need to nationalize Ballot initiatives to pass federal law and amend the U.S. Constitution. There we go. Roger Meadows speaking truth to power, who is, in my opinion, leading the way. But he gives a credit where credit's due to all the other heroic activists and organizers that are leading the way in New York State. And so with that being said, we're going to be doing our Patreon show. My name is Kit Cabell, the host of Hard Lens Media. Peace to you guys, and let us all do what we can to build a better future.